What you watching?
Welcome back from the break. We're still on What You Watching. We're here with Imran, PC Mike, the Giggler. We're having a lot of fun. And today we're talking about a lot of MCU. We said it was an MCU-heavy episode. It's going to be an MCU-heavy year. If you're not here for the MCU, this might not be the podcast because it's going to be a lot of the content that we're doing. And here's what we're doing. We're actually rewatching some of the old stuff. I say the old stuff, from the Infinity Saga, Phase 1, 2, and 3, while we watch the very beginnings of Phase 4. And I put a lot of thought into this because, I try not to cram these episodes too much when I can prevent it. So it was like, can I revisit these another time, do it another way? The reason I do it like this is because I'm starting to see some really cool parallels between an early phase Marvel project as I'm watching like their new stuff, if that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely.
You're starting to see the formula that went into this, the backtracking, and it's also helping me really feel grounded with some of these characters that we see on these screens that you might not remember, like what exactly happened with Wanda throughout all of the MCU, what exactly happened with Vision, and now we have to start wondering what's going to happen with Darcy, who's from the Thor films.
Yeah.
Kat Dennings, she's in this show. And so today we're featuring her first film in the MCU. We're talking about Thor, and we're going to break it down. Going to give the story pretty quickly like we did Iron Man 2 last week. I got my notes here. We're going to try to keep it tight to where we're not going on too many tangents, but are certainly going to hear from all four of us our thoughts on the movie as we go along. Are you guys ready to talk about Thor?
Thor, I am. Sorry, that's bad.
Yep. I tried.
You tried. You went for it. You went. Hey, you went Thor it.
Well, there you go. That's a little bit better. So Thor after my workout today.
We welcome the puns on this show. Welcome in wherever you can. All right, opening up Thor. Where does this fall? We are talking 2011 film. I always like to highlight we got the budget, $150 million to make it, and it made $449.3 million. That's from IMDb. Quick recap if you don't remember exactly what the film's about. The powerful but arrogant god Thor is cast out of Asgard to live amongst the humans in Midgard, a.k.a. Earth, where he soon becomes one of their defenders. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Ashley Miller wrote the screenplay. Zach Stentz also wrote the screenplay. Stars Chris Hemsworth, of course. Anthony Hopkins as Odin. Natalie Portman as the fantastic Jane. And this is coming off Iron Man 2. We just reviewed it. We just talked about the movie. We'll always kind of tell you where this falls in the lineup. And this was our first introduction to the character. It was a very big movie that was teased out very much so all throughout Iron Man 2 with things that are happening in the Southwest. Phil Coulson and Director Fury are just talking about there's something happening in the Southwest, Tony. Don't worry about it. This is what they were talking about. It's the end credit scene of the movie, Iron Man 2. It's not where it picks up, though. The movie actually opens up introducing us to the three scientists. Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, Dr. Selvig, and Darcy Lewis, who's played by Kat Dennings. You might recognize Kat Dennings from Two Broke Girls, but if you're like us, you recognize her as Darcy from Thor. She's also in Thor: The Dark World. She's going to be in WandaVision. It's kind of cool to see where does this character start? What could she maybe be doing in the WandaVision storyline? And it opens with them in the desert, chasing down an atmospheric anomaly, and they find who we all know, the audience, as Thor in the desert, on the ground, middle of nowhere. And she says it, where did you come from? And this is where it gets exciting, folks. We go from the world of Iron Man, the world of Iron Man 2. Okay, amazing people live on Earth. They can make things like this Iron Man suit. Now we're going outside of the cosmos, and we're going to other realms, other planets. And the MCU, once again, is saying, we are going to do this, and we're going to do it right. Imran, do you remember when this movie came out? Were you just beyond jacked? Is it one of your favorite MCU films? Where's this one falling?
It's not going to be in the top or middle tier. It's like a middle to third tier, but it notable for, first of all, they're getting Kenneth Branagh to direct a Thor movie. I remember hearing, I'm like, are you kidding? Like Shakespeare, and then you have Anthony Hopkins, an incredible class. I think it's the introduction to Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and to see where he started, how they really didn't know what to do with Thor for like 3 movies, right? They was very serious, and you look at him at Thor Ragnarok, and he's like in a Three Stooges short, sometimes. So they started out very serious, but yes, the Jane Foster and the Kat Dennings and the idea. Again, Marvel did this throughout with they're trying to explain everything with science. They're trying to explain Asgardian magic. They try to explain Doctor Strange magic, try to keep it grounded, but then it's also magic. But beautiful to see the Bifrost and Asgard and Heimdall and all these characters. So it's a solid start for this character taken seriously. I'm old enough. The last time I saw Thor on screen, it was in that crappy 70s Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno, and Thor was wearing like a fur coat and a thing with horn. He didn't even look like Thor. They did the Daredevil. It was all black. Those movies were great and horrible, and I love them still. But that was my Thor, so I was happy to get this Thor.
Yeah, this one, the MCU, of course, Marvel Studios didn't let you down. It looked and felt amazing. So Asgard, being Asgard, we do meet some characters from there that are going to set up the storyline and the arc of Thor. And I'll tell you, after rewatching this and after we just watched Avengers Endgame recently, I'm telling you, this arc from beginning to end is there. There's no question. This is a lot like Iron Man 2. This is a story about ego, a young Thor who doesn't really know that much and is about to be king. But that all gets messed up whenever the Frost Giants, who we find out are like kind of the arch nemesis of these guys, attack Asgard. They ruin the ceremony, and Thor makes a big mistake. He goes against his father's wishes, and he goes attacks these folks. This will be his demise in the end, thinking that he knows best. He doesn't know what his father knows best, and he's going to get banned to Earth. And this is the movie that we're getting. A Thor. This is what I thought was interesting. A Thor. This is the only time we see Thor without his powers. Like, I don't think there's ever other movie wherever like you're seeing kind of like this Thor that isn't like almighty. He's kind of indestructible. We have found out.
Yeah. It's a nod to the original Thor, who was Donald Blake. He was a doctor, and he would slam his staff down and just transform to a whole different person. So they had a couple of nods to that, in the thing. But I was wondering when I saw this, will they do that? They do not do that, because Hemsworth is too hunky to make him look like something else.
And I guess they also were just like, well, we'll just let him be Thor. He'll just be Thor.
Yeah. It's funny because they didn't realize how funny Chris Hemsworth is. Like, he has amazing comedic timing that we don't see for many, many years.
Even Ram, I think I'm with you because, like, just watching Endgame, even the last scene when they're going back and forth, like, who's the leader of the ship?
It's like, who's in charge? You are, of course.
And then they're like, why don't you battle with knives? And they're like, ooh, knives. Drax like, yes, knives. Like, that stuff's gold. Yeah. And then I see this, I'm like, I like funny Thor. I like drunk funny Thor better.
Fat Thor is great. Drunk Thor is great. No, I mean, and I think Taika Waititi helped really pull that out of him and nail what this Thor is. And he's great when he's serious, but he's also really funny when he's funny.
Well, Andy, I saw you have some thoughts on this movie. One of our biggest MCU fans on the show. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I for sure. It is crazy to see like where Thor has evolved from this movie. I remember didn't really know anything about him. Thought he was kind of on the lower tier of like cool characters of in the MCU that I kind of didn't really know a lot about. But this movie shed light on how kind of cool that character is, what he can bring to the screen, and it definitely didn't disappoint. But yeah, I'd put this in like the middle of my rankings. Like we always say like the MCU has all good movies. So it's a great origin story, but I think it's not even close to where he's at now. When we won't talk about the Dark World, that's definitely going to go near the bottom. But
we're going to talk about it. You can tell us how much you hate it, but I'll tell you something. I know what you guys are saying, and Thor gets a lot of flack. So does Thor 2. But also something that held true for me was I was thinking the whole time, he's never really I don't think he's ever been to Earth, or if he did, he never had spent time there like he did when he was the Avengers. So he really did talk like those people in Asgard do talk like Shakespeare, So, and now, did it come off like kind of boring a little bit? But watching it as a MCU seasoned fan, I watched it and I was like, this is exactly who this person would be at this point in time.
It's a solid origin. And my problem when, before the MCU came out and we had the Batmans and the Spider-Mans and the early, like the origin movie, I love them, but I was always like, I want to get past the origin because I know how many times you're going to see Batman's parents get killed. We get it. Just drop us into him being Batman. So you got to get past the setup, and the setup sometimes can be a lot of exposition, a little tedious, but then once you laid that down, and Marvel was always smart at laying other things down in these origin movies. I mean, you want to talk about connection? Paul Bettany started as a voice of a glitchy thing in the very first Iron Man. Look where he is now. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing also because of like how cool like Jarvis was, and then you're like, oh, Vision's cool, and then you're like, oh, Vision sucks for 2 movies, and now he's in WandaVision. It's like, what a journey.
Yeah. It's great.
I think he's going to redeem himself big time. I think it's leading to a big finale, and I can't wait to talk about WandaVision with you guys. But focusing on Thor, I do have some fan mail to feature. It's on the Bifrost, okay? This is going to be cool because this is actually making things about the movie that they talk about in real life with real science. It comes at us from our friend Nick. PC Mike, you know this, Nick. We went to high school with him. I won't say his last name, but he's Nick C. And he loves aliens. He loves science. He goes down wormholes, literally and figuratively. So he actually mentions us. He texted me this. He said, well, hopefully you know what a light hole is, first of all.
Light hole?
I did, and I didn't. And he said, well, theoretically, in our science, it's the output of a black hole. That's like where everything of the black hole is spit out, okay?
The other side. Okay.
On the other side. And then he says light, galaxies, planets. Now, it's the smallest particles imaginable because it was crushed in a black hole, but it comes out as this light on this other side. Okay, so he says, basically the theory is Asgard is at the very center point of their universe, which happens to be on the flip side of a dark hole. They're harnessing that energy, which is the next phase of life intelligence, and explains that the Bifrost energy and all that, for them to drop into a 3-second zoom, like to Earth. They can take the energy of this black hole, harness it, and that's how they're using it. And he says there's like real science behind like how some of this stuff would work, which they do highlight in the movie with Dr. Selvig and Jane. So I don't know if you guys are a big space or science nerd like Nick, but pretty cool thoughts. I thought we'd share it with the group. Did you guys like that part of the story? I thought it was cool how they tried to explain it with science because it is kind of whimsical, and you could get lost in that if you don't ground us.
Okay, I have one question. What time was that text exchange when you guys were talking about all of that?
I think it was like I think it was late. I think it was a late night text.
Okay, that's all I needed.
I mean, it kind of explains when you see the 9 realms in the second movie how they can connect through there. Like I love the 9 realms and just that concept.
And with the journal, her journal, and they're like, and he's like, "See, you were right." That was a really cool scene where he's like, "You're right. You shouldn't stop studying this."
Yeah. I love when they try to explain stuff with science. It's fascinating.
Well, Nick, thanks for the fan mail. I appreciate the thought. Anytime you got that nerdy stuff, we'll probably have Nick on here at one point or another. He's a good guy, and that's pretty funny. So they call it an Einstein-Rosen bridge in the movie, or a wormhole.
That's a thing too, right?
That's a thing. That's like a thing, and that's what Nick was saying. You know, he's like, that's where I like kind of listened to them talking about it. Looked at Nick's text. I was like, he's kind of on the same path here. This might be, maybe one day, I guess, is the theory.
Like Star Trek transporters, you think about the same kind of thing. Maybe they're harnessing similar energies,
and it looks the same, kind of how they do it in Star Trek. It's like that phasing kind of look.
Yeah.
We get some fun stuff in this. We get Thor's team versus the Ice Giants. A big fight scene early on. We're talking about Thor getting banished. One of the funnier parts of the film, Jane hits Thor with her car again in the parking lot. I like that. It's the timing. That could be a joke that doesn't really hit that well. It does. It's funny. We get some fun stuff with the hammer. You get a Stan Lee cameo trying to pull that thing out of the desert. That was really fun.
Oh, right.
We get S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie again, and this time we're going to get it in a big capacity. So in Iron Man, we got like Phil Coulson, you got Nick Fury, you did meet Natasha Romanoff. Now you're going to see like the big S.H.I.E.L.D., okay? They build a city basically around the hammer, and you got Agent Coulson there kind of seeing it, and they basically steal Jane's work. I don't know if you guys remember this part of the movie. Rewatching it, I was like, this is really messed up. Like they are literally saying like, all right, we're going to take everything, all your life's work. You can't look at it anymore. I'm hoping that this was like foreshadowing of like Hydra being infiltrated in S.H.I.E.L.D. Otherwise, like S.H.I.E.L.D.'s just like a dick company and they need to figure out their stuff.
Government pulls that shit all the time. Come on. They're like, no, don't study this and give me your computer.
Yeah. It was very, I guess, realistic of what the government would do. But I was like, man, I thought these S.H.I.E.L.D. guys were good guys because they're like teamed up with the Avengers,
Yeah, it's early S.H.I.E.L.D. and Coulson's still alive.
Yeah, man. Agent Coulson. Oh, man. Love that character. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. I don't know if you've ever watched. Watch that
Love
one.
that show, even though Coulson literally dies like 7 times during the goddamn run of that show. He dies and comes back to life so many times. You're like, all right, what's going on? This
Every
is
time,
ridiculous.
all the way,
Yeah.
all the way through the end. I mean, no
Yeah, every
spoiler
season.
alert. I mean, I'm just
whatever. It's done.
It is done, and it's been done. Some other big stuff in the film. We do meet Loki, like Imran said. So this is gonna be like you're gonna see Loki's arc from very quickly being like this kind of cool brother to being full on bad guy, literally trying to kill his brother, sending the destroyer down to Earth to do it. He knocks out his dad, says like he lies and says to Thor on Earth whenever Thor tries to get his hammer from this shield base. Loki visits him and says to his face, "You killed Dad because you stressed him out." I was like, man, Loki went bad guy. I mean, he had been bad for a while, I guess.
Yeah. He's the god of mischief.
He's the god of mischief. I love his character. Tom Hiddleston nails it. Has a lot of great back and forth with. I love Idris Elba in this film as Heimdall. He plays the Guardian. He's the Keeper. This guy's great in everything he does, and he's just a badass with that big ass sword. Moving through the story. Wrapping it up, getting toward like the big chunks here. Loki makes a deal with the Odinheim, basically says, we're going to be friends. We're going to take over Asgard. He's lying. He's going to make it look like he's the hero, save his dad at the last minute, and kill the Frost Giant, who is his dad, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Man, I haven't watched this movie in a long time.
That was Loki's dad that he kills and saves his fake dad. You know,
jeez,
I know I didn't pick up on that till this rewatch. They were like, he's like, who's my dad though? And I was like, who are my parents? And he was like, the leader, essentially. I was like, oh my god. So he wasn't just like a random frost giant. I also had like once you watch these movies so many times, you start really digging. Okay, so I was like, why did Odin take this baby for real? Because Odin says he was like, oh, I wanted to bring our people together. But I thought about this. I was like, wait a minute. You're going to kidnap this thing's baby when you're supposed to have a truce with this guy. And I was thinking he was just trying to prevent another heir coming from the Frost Giants in that guy's name. And I think this was foreshadowing of like Odin kind of having a dark side like we'll learn in Thor Ragnarok.
I mean, he did some shady shit. So there's early hints of that. That's interesting. Yeah, I did not pick up on that.
Because you kind of view Odin as like this knowing all being when you first see him. Like he's almost God.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, he can't really do anything wrong. Well, no, he's just like the rest of us, and he's still learning lessons all the way through the end.
And that's the beauty of all these characters is everyone is flawed in ways sometimes you don't anticipate.
Exactly. Or like how something that seemed like you're like, oh, that was selfish. You like kind of look at, peel back the layers. Oh, that's why they did that.
Yeah.
Getting to the end of the movie, Thor still doesn't have his powers. He goes to the destroyer that's been sent by Loki. This thing smacks him and he's like dying, says goodbye to Jane. Big, powerful moment. This is like the first thunder up. You've been waiting for it the entire movie. Who else was disappointed whenever he couldn't pull it out of the shield base? Agent Coulson said it all. He said, wait, I want to see this. I was like, all of us want to see it. He pulls out the hammer, brings the heat. He beats the destroyer, I think, in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, it does end very quick all of a sudden, doesn't it?
It does. It's very quick.
The destroyer looked cool, though.
It did look cool, and they actually S.H.I.E.L.D. ends up keeping that and building the weapon that would eventually shoot Phil Coulson. In the next movie we're going to review after Iron Man 3, Avengers 1.
Oh, that's right. Wow, that's a great connection, too. I forgot about that.
Whenever you write down notes, you really can remember what happened.
It helps.
I'm a real pro notes guy.
I'm literally learning today. Thank you.
You caught more on your rewatch than I did. Maybe I should do another rewatch.
I think you as many times as you can. All right, so Thor's back. Mjolnir comes in hot, gets his power, saves everybody. Dr. Selvig, Jane, saves them all. This is so cool. This guy's the real deal. You'll see what happens in Avengers. Like we said, we'll be talking about that one coming up. We're doing all of them. So back on Asgard, Thor leaves Earth, defeats the Frost Giants, faces off with Loki in an epic battle where those two are fighting to the death at the Bifrost. The plan here was Loki's destroying Jotunheim because, as they foreshadowed in the first 10 minutes, Heimdall says that when you point this thing at a planet for too long, it'll blow it up. So Thor can't stop it. He's like, I can't stop it, but he's also promised Jane he'll be back. Well, he can't let this species die. He destroys the Bifrost with his hammer. Odin ends up coming out, catches both of the boys before they fall off the edge. Thor is holding Loki. Loki looks up, says, Dad, I tried. I did this. And Odin just says, nope. Loki falls off into the universe, falls down into this black hole. Where does he go? We'll find out later at the end credit scene of the movie. Wraps up, Thor and Odin reconcile. Thor recognizes he has a lot to learn. The ego is dwindling down by the end of the film. Before we get into the end credit scenes, favorite part, Imran, I see. What are we
Well, he was I remember thinking he was stuck on Asgard at the end of this movie.
Yes, he's stuck on Asgard because he's broke this thing, but then they just like fix it.
Right. Then they figure out that Heimdall can just run the thing, and he shows up again. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because he does have he even in Infinity War, he literally sends the Hulk down to Earth with just like his sword, and he's like on his last breath.
Yeah, so we didn't know how strong Heimdall actually was, and he could just touch someone and send them. As far as the favorite part, actually, these early movies, the post-credit scene got me the most because it was so new. And it was so like a comic book, and nobody was doing that. And you were like, "What?" And now it's just commonplace. Even with WandaVision, people are like, "Is there stuff at the end?" I'm gonna watch till the end. There's nothing at the end.
And you know what else?
6 minutes of
6. That's short. Yeah, 12-minute credits usually.
Yeah, it's very long. It looks good, but it almost looks like they were like, "Hey guys, we got to make this look really good so people watch it for a long time." But talking about end credit scenes, I say this all the time. Like the MCU, they set the stage with this kind of stuff. I love at the end of this movie, it says just very straightforward: Thor will return in the Avengers. I was like, hell awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, don't mess around. Just tell me what's coming. That is so exciting. I was so pumped. I remember getting the teaser for the Avengers in the theater. It was like the post credit. It was like literally a trailer where they put it only in the theaters, and you just got flashes of like each hero. And I was like, it's coming.
Yeah, it's giving me chills thinking about it. I remember the first one, and I was like, oh my God, they're doing this. And then in Hulk, it's a horrible movie, and there's another one, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a thing. They're actually doing this. And it changed everything.
Talking about the end credit scene, let's break it open. So we meet Dr. Selvig again. He's meeting with Nick Fury. Actually, before we get there, there's a YouTube video. It's at the very end of the movie. This is a callback to the fan mail we just highlighted with the talking about the black hole, the light hole, all that. Apparently, this is what we just explained, and what Nick sent us in the text is what the end credit scenes is of the movie. Like it leaves Heimdall and Thor, and it takes you on this journey.
Oh wow!
Through space, and it lands at the light hole at Asgard, and like pulls you. It's a full probably 2-3 minute thing.
Oh wow!
So if you go back and watch it, you'll feel like you're traveling through space like on one journey. But
that's cool.
Then we do get Dr. Selvig. He meets with Nick Fury. They're gonna study. We see for the very first time the Tesseract.
Yeah.
Which we don't know yet. Maybe I'm sure the big Marvel fans knew, but I didn't know. This is an Infinity Stone, and they're teasing it out. We don't even know what it's called yet. We just know that he calls it power, and that we're gonna see this thing again in our next movie review, Captain America: The First Avenger of the MCU rewatch. And we see that Loki is there. He's on kind of like Dr. Selvig's shoulder in the back in the distance, kind of saying like, ooh, let's see what this thing looks about, teasing out that something's going to happen with Loki and Power and Dr. Selvig. What are they setting up? The Avengers.
Dude, that also ties into like his show once they reset the timeline and he jumped with that Tesseract at a different time. And now he's in. So again, we're going to see Tom Hiddleston soon on Disney Plus, and I think that's probably one of the greatest things that these Thor movies gave us was Loki. It's so amazing.
Yeah, think about this. We're watching kind of like the first 3 episodes of Loki, because you see the Loki that gets to Avengers, and then that's where Loki picks up. Except he vanished, you know. It's a different one, but still, you know what I'm saying? Like up to that point, we know what he's lived through.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. What are we going to see from Darcy in WandaVision? I mean, she picked up a lot of stuff from Jane. She's obviously there's parts where she actually said something smart that proved that she was listening to Jane and learning. And she is in Thor 2, The Dark World, and she gets her own intern. So she was moving up the corporate ladder. And we do know from Age of Ultron that Jane ends up winning like a Nobel Peace Prize because of how big and how well she's done in the world.
Yeah.
So Darcy was there. Is she going to be part of Sword? Is that what we're thinking?
I think so. I think at the end of the first episode of WandaVision, that when they pull back and that looks like a lady's hand watching the screen, I think that's Kat Dennings. I think that's Darcy. I think she works. She now because Shield is done, so she's just working for Sword now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that we've seen in movies throughout are going to end up being in that field once this next episode starts of WandaVision, or just associated with Sword in some way for sure. That'd be a very cool thing to happen. So I'm ready for it.
So I know we're going to talk about WandaVision today, but I just watched an interview with Paul Bettany today, and he gave a little nugget, and he said somebody he acts with, he's wanted to act with his whole life.
I saw that. Yeah.
And he's very excited, and it's a dream come true that he's working with this actor, and we don't know who it is yet.
Oh my God! Who did they dig up Marlon Brando? What's going on?
Oh my gosh! I can't even.
Robert De Niro?
Is it going to be Luke Skywalker?
It's gonna be a DHCG Luke Skywalker again. Listen, at some point, every actor in Hollywood will be in a Marvel property,
or DC, or sorry, not DC. Star Wars and MCU maybe eventually on Disney Plus become a multiverse.
Oh God, how do you explain that one away?
The light hole. You explain it because the light hole.
Light hole. The light hole will take you from Star Wars to the MCU. This way.
What
sir.
if I would have told you whenever Iron Man came out? If I was standing in front of you in 2008, I'm like, hey, dude, in 12 years, we'll have 5 Marvel shows in a year and 4 movies. You'd be like, no, never.
No way. I mean, I'd still have to pinch myself. That I was watching Endgame. I remember the first time I'm like, are they showing me Spider-Man holding the Infinity Gauntlet, swinging off Thor's hammer? Is this what I'm watching? And I didn't. That battle at Endgame, when they started coming together, I totally expected them to like cut away and come back when it's over. I was like, there's no way. And then they showed you all of it. Oh my God.
Everything you were like thinking, I hope I see this. You really saw it in Infinity War and Endgame.
I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this. They actually did this.
And if you like the Infinity movies, we just did the Infinity Saga where we talked about both those things. So there's a whole episode just for you, just for that. Let's wrap up Thor. We'll rate it. We'll go do a roundtable. Just my high-level thoughts and my takeaway from the film. The story, again, very much like Iron Man 2. Story of ego. These are early days Avengers. We're going to see all this play out again in Avengers. Their egos are not done with, and they're learning. They're learning how to be heroes. But Thor does go through his story arc of this phase, and there is an absolute it's a heartbreaking, heartwarming, all at the same time kind of feeling of Thor and the stuff he's going through. He has a quote in here, actually, that correlates directly to a quote in Endgame. And he says in here to Selvig, I think, when they're at the bar drinking, which I just did a episode of Mostly Superheroes, the music show, and we did our top songs from the MCU. It's a song that's in this scene. They're having the beer scene. This is when Dr. Selvig's like, you got to leave town, leave Jane alone. He says, for the first time in my life, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And in Avengers Endgame, he says, for the first time in my life, I'm gonna live for who I am, not who I'm supposed to be, because his mom tells him to stop trying to be something for everybody else.
Wow.
So just a big arc showing how he goes from being like this kid who can't wait to be king, like very Simba, and just real pumped up to like run the 9 realms. Then he starts learning like, oh, it's not all just being cool. Had a lot of fun with it. I obviously rewatch the shit out of it all the time. We gave a thing about what I gave Iron Man 2. It's going to help me give a base for this. I'm going to give this a 3.1. PC Mike, let's go to you, and we'll work our way up.
It has been 10 years since I've seen this film, so your recap helped me. I'm going to go safe because it's been a long time. But, I mean, the characters are there, the actors are there, the actresses are there. I'll go safe, and I'll just give it a 3.0. 3.0 from my 10 years of not watching.
Hey, it's always an honest rating, make sure it's like what you really feel at the end of the day, this movie. Giggler.
I'm going to match your rating at the 3.1. I was thinking about that. It's definitely something that I'll throw on the TV if it's on randomly and enjoy every second of it. But I love it, how it set up everything. And it was a great movie by itself, too. So, yeah, 3.0 seems like or 3.1, perfect score. Not perfect, but
perfect for you because it's real and it's honest, and that's all that matters around here. Imran, give us your thoughts on the Thor film and your rating. And I know you guys do a 10 scale, I think.
We do it out of 10, but I can convert. I have an iPhone. It's
All right.
very quick.
Well,
There's an app that does that.
And you said you've
Metric.
listened, so it's pretty straightforward. GPA kind of 4.0.
You guys using the metric system throwing me off. Look, is it a little silly? Sure. Is the potential, some of it wasted? Maybe, but for its place in time, it is very entertaining. It was an important setup. We meet a lot, and like just talking about it again, we meet a lot of important characters. A lot of things happen that affect things later. So I think it deserves there, and it's a good base for the Thor character to grow. It needed to start somewhere. It's an all right start. I will give it a 3 also, I think. How about in the middle? A little above middle.
Fair scores. I think that, again, our threshold usually ends up around that rewatchability on that 3.0. It's like if you're rewatching it and you're having fun, it's like you're going to be above 3. If I find myself continuously saying I'm not going to watch this again, it's like, well, you're in the 2s.
Is there an MCU movie you'd never watch again? I can think of maybe one. I don't know.
I would say there isn't one yet. I'll say that.
I'm gonna be honest. I tried watching Captain Marvel again.
Oh, okay.
That
might be the one. But I still watch it because you still get young Nick Fury. You still get young Agent Coulson.
Cool shit in there, yeah.
Well, speaking of other MCU films, we are in the middle of an MCU rewatch. We're taking you along with the Phase 1 through Phase 3 stuff while we watch the brand new stuff coming out on Disney Plus all year. So next film will be Captain America, the first Avenger. So we'll do that one next week. Can't wait. Avengers will be after that. And then we will get into Iron Man 3. That's the first movie of Phase 2. Another controversial one. You talk about one of the worst ones or one that people don't really typically like to watch or talk about. We're going to watch it and talk about it.
Yeah, that one it's fun to talk about. And I still don't know whether I like it better than 2 or 3. It's Shane Black. It's always at Christmas. I don't know what his deal is. But honestly, this is fun to rewatch. I wish there was but there's probably a pill I could take that would allow me to watch Avengers again for the first time and relive that, because that moment, I mean, watching Endgame in a theater was amazing. I've never had an experience like that. But watching Avengers the first time when they see everybody, they spin around, I'm like, holy shit, they're doing this.
And each one just shows up. Like Tony just shows up. You're like, oh, he's here now. There's his music. Okay, this is awesome. I know this guy.
This movie shouldn't have worked. Like anybody else who did this movie, it would have been a disaster.
It would have been so bad.
So bad. And we have evidence of that. It shouldn't have worked, and they just nailed it. And now Kevin Feige rules the universe.
And now look at us. Now he's like, hey, I can do this almost every day.
Yeah, I can do whatever I want now.
Well, we're here for it. We are nerding out
Absolutely.
super hard. It's never been more exciting to be a Marvel fan, MCU fan, or really just a superhero TV and film fan. And we are here to talk about all of it. When we come back, we're going to continue the journey down Phase 4 and talk about the meat of today's episode, WandaVision Episode 3. Before we do that, we'll take one quick break, our last one, and we'll be right back.